Let's take a trip to the past. It's a Saturday in 2002. Your siblings are still asleep and you are finally old enough to eat breakfast in the living room. So you pour yourself a bowl of your favorite cereal and make a beeline for the TV. But you don't have cable. No, that's way too expensive. So in the absence of Cartoon Network, you do what any sensible child would do and change to Channel 4. At this point, I suppose I should rope in the younger viewers. So in case you don't know, Channel 4 was the home of 4Kids TV. A youngster's happy place that aired some of the best shows a watered-down kids network could hope to have. They had all the classics, like the Winx Club, Sonic X, Kirby Right Back At Ya, and the focus of this video, YuGiOh Duel Monsters. A show that, looking back, contains some laughably bad censorship on 4Kids, but found its stride later on Cartoon Network. But even if you didn't grow up on Channel 4 cartoons, if you were in American elementary school back in the early 2000s, there was no way that you didn't see this background at least once. These cards were everywhere, and I was obsessed with them. When I was a lot younger, for religious reasons, I wasn't allowed to watch Pokemon. So despite memorizing that awesome theme song, I had no fondness for Pikachu or Charizard. But the Dark Magician, Red Eyes Black Dragon, and Slifer the Sky Dragon were the coolest thing ever to me. And yet, as a child of meager means and an uncertainty for whether or not I was even allowed to play Yu-Gi-Oh, I had to be creative in how I gathered the coveted Yu-Gi-Oh cards. Luckily for me, my good friend James had an uncle that smuggled him cards. And James, angel that he is, was a very generous friend. He straight up just gave me a ton of cards to get started. And from there, I became a clueless trading machine. Like Joey Wheeler, I gathered any strong cards I could find and put them all into my own massive deck. And since we had no rules back then, I played no less than 65 cards in every duel. And I bricked basically every duel. Until one day, when I finally got the elusive Slifer the Sky Dragon. James's uncle had stumbled across a gold mine of God cards. Most of them were counterfeit, but the Slifer James gave me was real. At least that's what I tell myself. I still remember the joy I felt as I put the card in my pocket and went to school to show it off to my friends. And I'll never forget the day it fell out of my pocket in class and a certain someone held it up and got it confiscated by the teacher, who by the way did not give it back on the last day of school when I asked her for it. Cassie, I will never forgive you. But for all you listeners at home, don't worry, the story gets much worse. Not only did I lose my Slifer the Sky Dragon, but I lost over half my deck one fateful day when I forgot to empty my pockets before putting the clothes in the laundry. My once beautiful deck of cards returned to me a color-bloodied wad of paper pulp. I was devastated and heartbroken. But like Yugi when Exodia was cast into the sea, I gathered my will, fell back on the few cards I had, and rebuilt my deck. This time with cards from the new series, Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. I built a Moki Moki deck that sadly did not work the same way it did in the show, and I got called a cheater quite often. But I had a lot of fun with that deck. Until yet another fateful day, and physical card players, please do not hate me for this, but I left my cards in my pocket again, and I lost every single card I had this time. I know, I am deeply ashamed. I don't know how this happened twice, but at that point I decided that I would just never collect Yu-Gi-Oh cards again. Plus, soon after, I moved to a new school where anime nerdiness got replaced with rap music and art, so I wouldn't have anybody to play with. But deep down, I always had a soft spot for Yu-Gi-Oh, and would often watch Duel Monsters or GX when they aired on Cartoon Network. Now, I didn't just share this story to expose myself as an old man or to show off how irresponsible I am with emptying my pockets. Instead, I shared this story so that you understand what I mean when I say that I love card games. All those years ago, Yu-Gi-Oh! Awakened within me an infatuation with gathering cards, building decks, and trying to achieve their win conditions. But there is a catch. I've spent a lot of time on various card games like Hearthstone, Gwent, and Magic the Gathering, and I could never really get into them. I think they're fine games and most of them are pretty well balanced, but I think the one thing they're missing for me is cards that speak to me on a personal level. I'll touch more on this in a bit, but by contrast, games like Villainous, Yu-Gi-Oh! And now even the Dragon Ball Super card game have cards that I can latch onto and allow me to develop a bond with my deck. And for me personally, this takes priority over balance. As an example, I have played Villainous dozens of times as Jafar. I have never won as Jafar, but I keep picking the character because Jafar is one of my favorite villains in Disney, and his deck has interesting mechanics that keep me engaged. But like I said, I'll touch more on this with regard to Yu-Gi-Oh! Later. The other issue I have with most other card games, even the digital ones, is that buy-in for them tends to be expensive if you want to have a solid deck. In my opinion, this has been true of Yu-Gi-Oh! For a long time as well. At least for the physical side and for the more polished games where you can battle other people. And that's the main reason why when Master Duel first released, I actually steered clear of it. Of course I enjoyed watching people play the game. The music and presentation lead to a feeling of epicness in every duel that's honestly just addictive to watch. But despite thinking it was a really cool game, I decided I wouldn't play it myself because I assumed it would be expensive to build a good deck. That is to say, until August of last year when I met my friend Louis James in Paris. He assured me that it was possible to have a good time in the game without spending any money at all. And so, later that evening, I went home, downloaded Master Duel, and played the tutorial. I thought it was pretty fun, but I was still concerned about spending money on it. So I watched some videos about how to not waste gems, and then immediately built a 60 card pure Red Eyes deck straight out of 2002. And if you know anything about modern Yu-Gi-Oh, then you know what a grave mistake that was. Here I was with no hand traps, no negates, and removal that required at least 2 turns and massively lucky draws. And the closest thing I had to an engine was Red Eyes Insight into Red Eyes Fusion to summon my ace monster. As you can imagine, I lost a lot of my early duels, but I didn't stop playing. Like I said before, I love card games. More importantly, unlike the games I had fallen off of, Yu-Gi-Oh has a lot of cards that I feel a connection for. And there also happened to be a Synchro and Exceed Summon Festival right around the time I started playing the game. Prior to downloading this game, I had never heard of XYZ or Pendulum Summoning, and even my Synchro Summon knowledge was shaky at best. So having an event with loaner decks that utilize these mechanics was a great way for me to get my feet wet without spending any gems. By that time, I had also learned the importance of the Ash Blossom and Lightning Storm cards I bought thanks to those YouTube videos I mentioned. And with the free gems and cards from Legacy Packs, I built my first deck completely from scratch. It still wasn't the greatest, but dueling with it helped me to learn more about the new mechanics, and it allowed me to experience the fun interplay that can happen between type-dependent decks like my Water deck and type-changing cards like Zombie World and DNA Surgery. I started winning more often thanks to better deck construction. And the Master Duel events had given me more gems which I didn't want to waste, so I used them to build a Moki Moki deck. Look, I don't know what to tell you, I have bad deck compression. My Moki Moki deck was terrible, but it did have one upside. I noticed that the duels I was winning with my Moki Moki strategy were mainly due to my Madolche cards. So I built a full Madolche deck, and that's where Master Duel had me fully locked in. Now, I wasn't just trying to make my old school cards work. I had found a new school deck that made use of Exceed Summoning, Linked Summoning, and could dodge enemy effects. And what's more, the cards I was using were ones I had an immediate personal connection to. I realized that even among the cards I don't know, there are gems to be found with fun mechanics and interesting counterplay, and I've been hooked ever since. What's even better is that I've been able to build many of these decks all while spending less than $30 on this game thanks to the events and the reward structure. I am once again in love with Yu-Gi-Oh, and it's all thanks to Master Duel. Before we end though, I do feel like it would be disingenuous to not mention the few complaints that I have for the state of the game. But I should also mention that I am not the greatest duelist, and since I'm not spending a lot of money, I don't have every card memorized or unlocked. So you can take these complaints with a grain of salt. And also understand that just because I complain about something that you might like, doesn't make it an attack on you. I love this game, which is why this whole video so far has been me gushing about it. But that doesn't make it perfect. Anyway, let's talk about these complaints. First of all, sprites are dumb. And this isn't so much a complaint about sprites as it is a criticism about how Master Duel handles the implementation of cards in this game. Sprites are an incredibly efficient deck with very few choke points and multiple ways to out negation. Unless your deck is set up to deal with them specifically, it can lead to a bad time, especially when paired with something like Runic or Twins. From what I understand about the TCG, Sprite combo decks have limitations in that format to prevent them from steamrolling less powerful decks. But when the deck was brought over into Master Duel, it was added to the game at full strength. And it's not just sprites. Up until the last patch, Runic was able to run rampant for similar reasons. Again, this isn't a criticism of the Sprite and Runic decks or their players. The meta is the meta, and if people want to win, they're going to play the decks that work. It's annoying, but that's life. My critique is that when a deck has shown itself to be problematic and there's already an existing stopgap to deal with it in real life, that same stopgap should be implemented in Master Duel unless there's a good reason not to do so. Otherwise, it leads to everyone running the same thing and ruins the already limited variety of decks at play in the competitive mode. Which leads to my second criticism, that it's kind of dumb for casual duels to offer no rewards at all. Every time someone complains about meta decks in the ranked mode, there's always some broken record bot in the comment section saying, if you don't like playing the meta, then just play casual. That's a stupid argument to make because it's ignoring the fact that both the Battle Pass and the achievement system require you to play ranked in order to make progress. I understand something like lifetime achievements being connected to competitive because you want players to actually earn them. But why can't dailies and Battle Pass progress be completed in casual matches? I don't even mean matches with friends, just casual matches with randoms. No other game locks you into playing their sweaty competitive mode to make progress on the Battle Pass. Sure, you can make progress in events which tend to be more fun and casual than ranked, but there isn't an event every day. And further to the point, you already don't get rewards if you surrender the match, so there would be no way to cheese the system any worse than people already do in ranked. Freeing up players to earn rewards from casual matches would not only reduce the complaints people have about the meta, but would also mean less throwers and bots in ranked, which in my opinion is better for everyone. And my last criticism is actually more of a wishlist item. There should be a way to battle CPU opponents using decks that you can craft yourself from all the cards available in the game. I had never really considered this until I discovered the Dragon Ball Super Card Game Starter Deck app, but I honestly think it would make a great addition. So many times when you run into an opponent with a powerful deck, you just have to sit back and watch them doing their thing and hope you can figure it out. YuGiOh is a lot like Tekken in that half the game is just a knowledge check for your opponent's options. A good example is the previously mentioned sprites. Sure, Gigantic Sprite is a significant choke point for the deck, but it's unlikely a player new to fighting it would figure that out without wasting at least 2 or 3 games trying to stop all the points before that. And even if you do negate Gigantic Sprite, there's a notable difference in dealing with the deck depending on whether they've paired sprites with Runic or with Twins. And these are only 2 of the options that people can pair with this deck. Again, I'm just using sprites as an example because it's the hot topic right now. Don't get triggered. Master Duel already has the tools to confirm and copy an opponent's deck, and it also has pretty decent AI in the solo mode. It would be great if we could craft a deck from our opponent and run multiple simulations to learn how to effectively battle decks we might be struggling against. It would also just be a great way to add more solo content for the game. But as far as criticisms go, that's all I've got for now. Sure, theoretically it might be nice if they did something like limit actions per turn or something, but then to me, it wouldn't be YuGiOh. Plus, there will always be something annoying in the meta. Limiting actions per turn would just change the meta to something that can set up more quickly. And as much as we might complain about the current meta, there's also one more thing I think we should consider. After 25 years of YuGiOh, OG cards like the Dark Magician, the Winged Dragon of Ra, and Blue Eyes are still getting support added that makes them relevant even amidst all the crazy meta decks. The fact that almost 20 years later I can return to this game and essentially pick up where I left off is beyond impressive. It's magical. If you have ever loved YuGiOh and you haven't tried Master Duel yet, I can't recommend it highly enough. Is there a learning curve? Yes. Is the game perfect? No. But I can promise you that if you put in the time to relearn this game and are willing to put up with some of the nonsense, you will find an extremely rewarding experience under the surface. Anyway, that's really all I wanted to say in this one, but I'm curious about you. If you've tried Master Duel, how do you like it? And if you've stopped playing, what pushed you away? Let me know in the comments below. Also, remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one.